The Phantom Call by Sarah. Last night started like any other Friday evening. I was lounging on my couch, scrolling through social media, when my friend Aisha burst through the door. Her eyes were sparkling with excitement as she grabbed my arm and practically dragged me off the couch. "Come on, we're going to be late for the show," she exclaimed breathlessly. I barely had time to grab my jacket before she whisked me out the door. The local bar was packed when we arrived. The opening act was just taking the stage as we squeezed our way through the crowd. The band's energetic rhythm soon had everyone moving. Aisha and I found a small table near the back and ordered a couple of non-alcoholic mocktails. As the night wore on, the music grew louder and the crowd more animated. It wasn't until several hours later during a lull between sets that I realized something was wrong. I reached into my pocket for my phone but came up empty. A jolt of panic shot through me. I patted down all my pockets frantically but found nothing. "Hey, Aisha, have you seen my phone?" I shouted over the din. She shook her head, looking concerned. I retraced my steps, searching every inch of the bar. I checked under our table on the sticky floor and even asked the bartender if anyone had turned in a lost phone. No luck. By now my heart was racing. That phone contained my whole life. Contacts, photos, important work files. The thought of losing it made me feel sick. "Here, use mine to call it," Aisha offered, handing me her phone. I dialed my number with shaking fingers, praying to hear it ring nearby. 1 ring, 2 rings. Then suddenly someone answered. But instead of my own voice, I heard a low, raspy chuckle that sent chills down my spine. Before I could speak, the line went dead. I stared at Aisha's phone in disbelief. "Someone answered?" she asked, seeing my expression. I nodded numbly. But they just laughed and hung up. Icy feeling of dread settled in my stomach. Who had my phone? And why weren't they answering now when I tried calling back? After several more failed attempts, I gave up. The night was ruined. All I wanted was to go home and figure out what to do. I said goodbye to Aisha and caught a taxi, feeling dejected and uneasy. As I approached my apartment building, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. I hurried inside, locking the door behind me. I flicked on the lights and froze. There on my nightstand was my phone, exactly where I'd left it earlier that evening. For a moment, I just stared at it, uncomprehending. Then slowly I approached and picked it up. The screen lit up, showing several missed calls from Aisha's number. My mind raced, trying to make sense of what had happened. If my phone was here the whole time, then who answered when I called? And how did they know to laugh in that chilling way? A verse from the Quran came to me unbidden, and "We have already created man, and know what his soul whispers to him, and we are closer to him than his jugular vein." I shuddered, realizing how vulnerable we truly are. Our modern devices connect us in ways we don't fully understand. Who knows what unseen forces might be listening in? That night, as I lay in bed, I kept my phone turned off and tucked away in a drawer. But even in the silence, I couldn't escape the echo of that sinister laugh. It was a stark reminder that in this world we are never truly alone. And sometimes that's the most terrifying realization of all. The Lady Next Door by Stefan. A few years ago, I rented an apartment from a friend. He had just bought and renovated it, but couldn't find a buyer, so I offered to rent it while he kept trying to sell. At first, everything seemed normal in my new place. The neighborhood was quiet. The apartment was freshly painted and updated. I felt lucky to have such a nice spot. But soon I realized something wasn't right with the lady next door. She looked to be in her mid-40s, but her face was deeply lined and her hair was wild and unkempt. Every night I'd hear her voice through the thin walls. She'd be up until dawn listening to Christian radio shows at full volume. She was always talking loudly to herself, or to someone I couldn't hear. After a week of sleepless nights, I decided to go over and politely ask her to keep it down. When she opened the door, I got a glimpse inside her apartment. What I saw made my skin crawl. Every wall was covered in crudely painted crosses. Scrawled between them were words like Jesus and angels, in messy handwriting. The windows were painted solid black. Not a ray of sunlight could get in. The smell hit me next. A nauseating mix of mold, dampness, dog waste, and decay. Cockroaches scurried across the stained yellow carpet. But strangely, I didn't see any sign of a dog. I stammered out my request for her to lower the volume. She just stared at me with glassy, unfocused eyes and slammed the door in my face. That night, the radio blared even louder than before. A few nights later, my girlfriend was staying over. We fell asleep around midnight. At some point, I jolted awake. The room was pitch black, but I sensed a presence. As my eyes adjusted, I made out a human silhouette standing right next to our bed. At first, I thought I must be dreaming, but then it spoke. "You should lock your doors at night." It was my neighbor's raspy voice. She had broken in while we slept. Who knows how long she'd been watching us. I heard her shuffling footsteps retreat and the front door close. I lay there paralyzed with fear, unable to move or speak. The next morning, I woke to strange guttural noises outside. I peered out my bedroom window. There was my neighbor in the yard below. She was swaying back and forth, speaking in tongues. In her hand was a plastic garbage bag. The smell of death wafted up from it. With horror, I realized it must contain her dog's rotting corpse. At this point, I was terrified. She was clearly dangerously unstable. I ran upstairs and pounded on another neighbor's door. The man who answered looked as scared as I felt. He told me she had broken into his place too. One night, while watching TV with his kids, he'd gotten up for a snack. When he returned, she was crouched behind the couch, staring at them and clutching a power drill. My blood ran cold as I realized what must have been in her hand that night in my bedroom. I immediately called the police. But they already knew all about her. She was a violent schizophrenic off her medication. But since she owned her apartment, they couldn't force entry or make her leave. All they could do was try to apprehend her outside. For the next 2 days, I didn't sleep. I sat vigil by the window, waiting for her to leave. Finally, at 2 a.m., I saw her heading to the convenience store across the street. I called 911. Within minutes, 3 police cars and a van arrived. They quickly subdued her and took her away. Just like that, she was gone. But the fear lingered. For months afterward, I'd wake in a cold sweat, thinking I saw her shadow in the corner. Even now, years later, I sometimes dream of her standing over my bed, her vacant eyes boring into me, her hand gripping that drill. I often reflect on the Quranic verse, "And we will surely test you with something of fear and hunger, and a loss of wealth and lives and fruits. But give good tidings to the patient." Those days taught me the importance of patience and faith in the face of trials. Though the lady is long gone, the memory of that time still haunts me. It was a stark reminder that danger can lurk behind any door, that evil can wear an ordinary face, and that we are never truly safe, even in our own homes. May Allah protect us all from such terrors, both seen and unseen. Ameen. The Phantom Bus Driver. It's by Michael. I was always the last kid to get picked up for school. Every morning I'd stand alone at the end of our long driveway waiting for that big yellow bus to appear. On this particular day, the air felt different, colder, heavier somehow. I shivered and pulled my jacket tighter as I scanned the empty road. A rumbling in the distance made me perk up. Finally, the bus was coming, but as it got closer, I realized something was off. This bus looked older, dirtier. The windows were tinted so dark I couldn't see inside. It lurched to a stop in front of me with a hiss of air brakes. The door creaked open. A man I'd never seen before sat in the driver's seat. He was pale, too pale, with sunken eyes that didn't seem to blink. "Hop on, kid," he said with a smile that didn't reach those dead eyes. "We've got a long ride ahead." Every instinct screamed at me to run, but I stood frozen, unable to move as his gaze bore into me. "Where are the other kids?" I managed to squeak out. His grin widened unnaturally. "Oh, we'll pick them up soon. You're just the first stop today." My heart was pounding so hard I thought it might burst. This was wrong. All wrong. I took a small step back. I think I'll wait for the regular bus." His face twisted into a snarl. "Get on the bus now," he growled, reaching towards me. I stumbled backwards, falling onto the gravel. Scrambling to my feet, I ran towards the house. I could hear the bus door slam and the engine rev. Glancing back, I saw it speeding away, leaving an oily black smoke in its wake. Breathless, I burst through the front door. My mom looked startled. "Michael, what's wrong? Why aren't you at the bus stop?" I tried to explain through gasps what had happened. She went pale and immediately called the police. For the next hour, our house was a flurry of activity. Police cars, concerned neighbors, phone calls to the school. but no one had seen or heard of any strange buses in the area. Eventually, things calmed down. The regular bus came and went. My parents decided to drive me to school themselves. That night, as I lay in bed, unable to sleep, I kept replaying the incident in my mind. Those dead eyes, that twisted grin, the way he reached for me. I shuddered, pulling the blankets tighter. A small part of me wondered if I'd imagined the whole thing. Deep down, I knew it had been real. Weeks passed. Life slowly returned to normal. But I never forgot. I became hypervigilant, always scanning for danger, jumping at shadows. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, once said, "A strong believer is better and dearer to Allah than a weak one." Ow. I tried to draw strength from those words, to not let fear control me. Years later, I learned the chilling truth. A serial killer had been active in our area during that time. His preferred victims? Children waiting alone at bus stops. He was eventually caught, but not before claiming several young lives. To this day, I wonder, what if I had gotten on that bus? What horrors awaited me? By the grace of Allah, I was spared. But the memory of that day still haunts me. A reminder of how quickly an ordinary moment can turn into a nightmare. I tell this story not to frighten, but as a warning. Trust your instincts. Stay alert. Never ever get into a vehicle with a stranger, no matter how harmless they may seem. For evil often wears a friendly face. The Quran teaches us, and we have already created man and know what his soul whispers to him, and we are closer to him than his jugular vein. In that moment of terror, I felt a presence, a whisper of warning. Perhaps it was my own instincts, or perhaps something greater. Whatever it was, I'm eternally grateful I listened. Sometimes I still dream of that day, of what might have been. I wake in a cold sweat, heart racing. On those nights, I whisper a prayer of thanks, for second chances, for narrow escapes, and for the ordinary miracles that save us from the darkness that lurks just out of sight. The Payphone, by Steve. I used to work the graveyard shift at a campground. Every night from midnight to 8 a.m., I'd sit alone in a tiny shack surrounded by darkness. It wasn't so bad. I'd bring my PS2 and game most of the night, only dealing with a camper or two on busy nights. During my first week, the guy I was replacing told me about this payphone a few feet from the shack. Said it rang every single night at exactly 4:17 a.m., just once. He figured it was probably an automated test call, but he'd never answered it himself. For months, I didn't think much of it. It was summer, so I kept the windows closed and couldn't hear it anyway. But as August rolled in, I started leaving the windows open at night. Sure enough, at 4:17 a.m. on the dot, that phone would ring once. The sound was eerie, like the phone was submerged underwater. It gave me chills every time. One night I finally got up the nerve to answer it. I set an alarm for 4:15 and waited by the phone. When it rang, I picked up, but there was only dead air, like someone was there but not speaking. I said hello a few times, then hung up. Did this for a week straight, always with the same result. After that, I left it alone for about a month. The first week of October, I decided to try answering again. I don't know why. Maybe the crisp fall air and Halloween approaching put me in a spooky mood. I set my alarm and went to wait by the phone in the chilly pre-dawn darkness. The stars were bright overhead and an owl hooted in the distance. As 4:17 a.m. approached, I felt my heart start to race. Right on schedule, the phone let out its muffled underwater ring. I picked up the receiver with a trembling hand and said hello. At first, there was only silence. Then I heard what sounded like someone slowly inhaling through clenched teeth. A rough, gravelly voice spoke. It said my name, my complete name, first, middle, and last. It was a voice I'd never heard before. My blood ran cold. How did this stranger know my full name? I slammed the phone down and stumbled back to my shack. With shaking hands, I dialed *69 to trace the call. The number was from California. I was in Indiana, over 1,000 miles away. I spent the rest of my shift huddled in the shack, jumping at every little sound. As the sky began to lighten, I found myself reciting Ayat al-Kursi for protection. Allah, there is no God but He, the living, the self-subsisting, eternal. The familiar words brought me some comfort, but I couldn't shake the feeling of dread that had settled over me. Who was calling me? How did they know my name? Why were they calling this random payphone in the middle of nowhere, Indiana, every single night? I tried to rationalize it. Maybe it was just a prank or some kind of glitch in the phone system. But deep down, I knew there was something more sinister at work. The next night, I debated whether to answer the phone again. Part of me was terrified, but another part desperately wanted answers. As 4 a.m. approached, I paced back and forth in the tiny shack. My palms were sweating. My heart was pounding. At 4:15, I stepped outside. The payphone loomed before me in the darkness. I approached it slowly, feeling like I was walking to my doom. At 4:17, it rang. I hesitated for a moment, then picked up. "Who are you?" I demanded, trying to keep the fear out of my voice. "What do you want?" There was a long pause, and that same chilling voice spoke. "I see you, Steve. Always watching, always waiting. Your time's coming soon." The line went dead. I dropped the phone and ran. I didn't stop until I was locked inside my car engine running. As I sped away from the campground, I knew I could never go back. But I also knew that whatever was on the other end of that phone call wasn't done with me yet. To this day, I'm haunted by those calls. Was it all in my head? Or was there really some malevolent force reaching out to me across the miles? I may never know the truth. But one thing's for certain. I'll never answer a ringing payphone again, especially not at 4:17 a.m. The Bicycle and the Car by Ethan. I was about 15 minutes from finishing my night shift at work. The office was quiet. Everyone else had gone home hours ago. I was alone with my thoughts and the gentle hum of the computer. Suddenly, a massive crash shattered the silence. The sound reverberated through the empty building. My heart leapt into my throat. I froze for a moment, trying to process what I'd just heard. Taking a deep breath, I slowly got up from my desk. My legs felt shaky as I walked towards the source of the noise. As I rounded the corner, I saw it. One of the large front windows was completely shattered. Shards of glass littered the floor, glinting in the moonlight. In the center lay a sizable rock. My mind raced. Who would do this? Why? The industrial district was deserted at this hour. All the other businesses were closed. An uneasy feeling crept over me. I hurried back to my desk and called security to report the incident. My hands trembled slightly as I dialed. I decided it was time to head home. As I walked through the dark, empty halls towards the exit, my imagination ran wild. Every shadow seemed to move. Every creak of the old building made me jump. By the time I reached the parking lot, I was in a near panic. I ran to my car, fumbling with my keys. I yanked the door open and dove inside, slamming it shut behind me. I sped out of the lot, my eyes darting to check every mirror. The normally quiet streets felt ominous. I kept expecting to see headlights appear behind me. As I neared home, my racing heart began to slow. I took some deep breaths, trying to calm myself. That's when I realized something that made my blood run cold. I hadn't unlocked my car when I got in. It had been unlocked the whole time. My mind flashed to stories of killers hiding in back seats. Without thinking, I whipped my hand behind me, feeling frantically for any sign of an intruder. Nothing. Just empty seats. I let out a shaky laugh at my own paranoia. Still, I couldn't shake the uneasy feeling as I pulled into my driveway. Once home, I called a friend, hoping for some company to settle my nerves. He was out drinking and invited me to join. Getting out of the house suddenly seemed like a great idea. I decided to bike over, enjoying the cool night air. As I pedaled along, I tried to relax. The moon was bright. A gentle breeze rustled the leaves. For a moment, I felt at peace. Then I heard it. The soft whir of bicycle tires behind me. I tensed up, straightening my posture and moving to one side of the road. The rider slowly passed me. As he drew alongside, I glanced over. What I saw chilled me to my core. His face was split by a wide, unnatural grin. His eyes gleamed with a manic light that spoke of madness. I flinched away from that terrifying visage. As he rode on ahead, my eyes fell to his bicycle. Recognition hit me like a physical blow. It was my mother's bike, the one she kept in our garage. Panic exploded in my chest. Spun my bike around and sprinted for home, pedaling harder than I ever had in my life. I burst through the front door, gasping for air. My eyes immediately went to the garage. The side door stood open. I rushed inside. My mother's bike was gone. With trembling steps, I approached my car parked in the driveway. The back left door was wide open, the door I never used while driving. Terror gripped me as the implications sank in. Someone had been in my house, in my car, waiting for me. I slammed the car door shut and ran inside, locking every entrance. As I huddled in my room that night, jumping at every sound, I was reminded of a hadith. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said, "Faith removes fear from the heart. Let no believer commit violence." I prayed for protection and tried to find comfort in those words. But sleep eluded me as I wondered what horrors the coming days might bring.